All right, we need to talk about some Japanese terminology here. The word we're looking for is kuzushi. Kuzushi is imbalance. So if I'm playing my De La Riva guard and I attempt to just sweep you, it's unlikely that you're going to move unless you've got terrible balance or I'm just a lot stronger than you. There's very little incentive for you to fling yourself about. Kuzushi is, in judo terminology, you would never attempt to throw somebody. Like, I would not be trying to, hip toss you right now because you're not vulnerable for it. I need to create a kuzushi. So, kuzushi is an act of imbalancing. We use the term just because it's a little bit easier than referring to momentum and center of gravity, which is the concept that we're actually covering here, which is anytime I want to sweep you, I need to take control of your momentum and your center of gravity from you. Or if you're a little bit more of a beginner, you're going to willingly give it to me. Most beginners tend to just charge forward and give you their center of gravity. So the movements that we'll be discussing in the future volumes refer to using my hamstring in the back of my thigh to push you away, using this butterfly hook to move you, and depending on where we end up in that sequence, I may add a tripod sweep to that. I may add my hand, we may add the DMX position, but basically I need to access this lever to move your center of gravity outside of your base.
Let's just show that outside, please, Rob.
Sure.
So you're controlling my heel.
So I'm controlling your heel so you can't retreat, right? So I'm controlling the end of the lever here, and then I'm applying force roughly around the knee joint with my hamstring. You'll notice the effect of that, and you have to kind of go backwards and down. You can't just go straight backwards, right? Because you'll just tip over, right? It starts to affect your knee as well. So you're going to go kind of backwards and down, which starts to set me up for this, which, you're going to know that as a more skilled practitioner that going into a squat back that way isn't super productive for you. So you're going to usually drive back in, and that little bit of momentum that you give me by driving back in, that's when I'm snatching your momentum and center of gravity from you, using it to redirect it, and then I can start to force you to adjust your base, which should be predictable to me, and I can start snatching up levers, manipulating those levers to your hip, using that to complete the sweep. So
it's an action-reaction.
Action-reaction, or an action where if you choose to ignore it and don't react, I'll also have something that I use. But like I said, that's more against beginners. More advanced practitioners will give you the reaction and we'll be able to play off of it. So every attack we do is based around that idea. I will never just try to launch an attack at you. Again, for the reasons we listed earlier, things like base posture structure, things like not winning an engagement phase, not being in the right phase, not winning a range battle, all those things contribute to it. But also, if you have control of your momentum and your center of gravity, I'm not going to be effective at moving you around, and I should never try to attack you without creating that kuzushi. And it's not just for sweeps. That's something I should really clarify. I can use kuzushi to attempt to sweep you, yes. However, I can use a kuzushi and your response to my kuzushi when I attempt to sweep you is going to be to post your hand or bring your weight forward so your neck is exposed. So even when we are attacking submissions, we have to utilize a kuzushi, particularly because in the no-gi De La Riva guard scenario, I don't have the luxury of those sleeve and collar grips where I can manipulate your posture. So it's this is kind of akin to what we talked about in the modern leg lock formula, where we mentioned that it's very difficult in a leg locking scenario to affect someone's posture. We can affect their base and we can affect their structure because we've got the levers to their hip in a leg locking situation. This is very similar in the no-gi De La Riva guard. The odds of me being able to get to your neck and in the initial phase, we'll go over some specific scenarios where we do guillotines and different attacks when people post, but in the initial phases, me playing the no-gi De La Riva guard, I can't touch your head. And I can't meaningfully pull your arms down. So I will not be able to shift your shoulders forward. So the kuzushi is always going to come from moving your legs about and getting underneath your hips and drifting you to some side, which will, again, either create a sweep potential, create a back attack potential if I create a dominant enough angle, or it'll create a submission potential because you will overreact to the initial sweep attempt. So without that initial kuzushi, none of that is possible. All right, as you may recall, we do not attack our opponent until we've created a kuzushi, until we've created some kind of alignment break. So here's our basic kuzushi for a no-gi De La Riva guard. Again, if I've pulled to the De La Riva guard, as we mentioned earlier, the kuzushi is already achieved.
Sure.
Right? My lever control to your shoulder allows me to shift your center of gravity, which allows me to load you up.
At this point, I'm Imbalance.
You're imbalance. Yes, exactly.
Or unbalanced.
Yeah, there's an imbalance between us in the force. So if I get to my no-gi del hiva guard and I've lost that initial wrist grip, and now you're camped out, you've got your proper alignment, you're in your stance, you're in your base, I've got my alignment, I'm trying to affect yours. The thing to be aware of is that once somebody is relatively square to you, they're going to be able to start popping this hook off. So I don't necessarily want to try to insist on this. If you're strong enough to get here, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. If I had a problem with this, I wouldn't be playing this card. Right? So when this hook gets shed, or when I just get here and I decide I'm going to get to work before you force that like hook shedding sort of motion, because frankly it's not pleasant. When you start turning this, it goes against my shin, it's not nice. I'm going to be a little bit of a, you know, I'm going to be a little bit of a soy boy here. I'm going to be sensitive. I don't want you to trigger me by taking out my del hiva hook.
This is a safe space.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to make sure that I just take the hook out myself. Because you on center isn't viable with this del hiva guard. You push backwards and now moving back into me is where I can take your base and your balance away from you.
So it's the pushing with this thigh
Exactly.
while holding my
While
heel.
holding your heel, I'm also trying to like curl backwards and turn. Like obviously right now I can't, but if your heel becomes light, I'm trying to do that. At the same time, with this leg, I'm pulling forward. My butterfly hook is contracting. So my left and right corners, my right hip, my left shoulder are pulling towards while I do this. So you can see how that magnifies.
Absolutely. Because I can't base
Exactly.
here.
If all I were to do is do this, you can stay fairly stable. As I pull and push, it messes with you a lot more. So I'm performing those actions simultaneously. When we drill this, you know, in class, we try to get kind of to the top of the shin and push here. If you have your opponent's safety less as a priority, you're certainly welcome to start pushing on the kneecap. And if you need to add to the pressure, we can push on the kneecap with our hand. Just the same as when we get our partner moving backwards and they start to move back forwards, we can assist that with this hand. So this floater can be like punching against the kneecap or pulling against the back of the knee. If you were to stay backwards, we'd go into the tripod sweep. We're going to go over that in the next video, but this is the essence of our basic kazushi is we're choosing to abandon the del hiva hook, or the del hiva hook has been shed. We are extending while we pull, and then if you stay there, we'll, like I said, we'll go over that. If you drive back in, I'm resetting my del hiva hook, but now, let's just turn, and there we go. Now, I'm not trying to keep it here. I'm pulling you to me, and it's elevating into this like knife edge, which again, we're gonna kind of go over that in another video.
Side kick to the taint.
Side kick to the taint, exactly. And I'm using that to pull you in and float you. There's my subsequent kazushi, and we can exploit that in a few different ways. So without this, your no-gi del hiva guard is gonna be essentially non-functional. You're going to have people shedding the hooks, moving into knee cuts, rolling kimuras, all kinds of stuff. You will be reliant on a pretty unskilled opponent to just kind of bumble or stumble forward. This allows you to create a shift in their center of gravity, allows you to access a lever, which will draw a response that will then allow you to start mobilizing your no-gi del hiva guard.